Okay, so Christmas is right around the corner and you're feeling some pressure trying to figure out what to cook. So dinner's on you, and I'm gonna help you put out any fires as far as what to cook for Christmas. So we're here at Costco today. We're gonna look at a few different options. If you want to do maybe a poultry, maybe a beef, maybe a pork. I'm just gonna go through a few different things that I might choose if I was hosting Christmas dinner at my house. So we're gonna head over to the meat department and we'll take a look at what they got. So first beef option that I would pick, especially if you're doing a smaller dinner, would be tri-tip. These cook well in the oven, they cook well in the smoker, you can cook them right on the grill. I've even done these in the crock pot, they turn out pretty well. It's basically a sirloin cut. It's got a decent amount of marbling most of the time, so you end up getting a pretty good flavor, pretty hard to mess that up. So that would be one option if you wanted to do more of a low-key beef centerpiece for your Christmas dinner. Let's head over and check out the other side of the meat aisle. So my number one choice, especially if you're hosting a bigger dinner, is the 9-bone ribeye roast. I like to go with the bone in. I think you get a lot of flavor on the meat between the bones. It looks more impressive on the dinner table. It just gives you a little bit more options to work with. If you don't want to deal with the bones, you could do the boneless as well. What I find works best with the ribeye roast is put it in your smoker for a while, slow cook it, so you get to about 120 degrees internal, and then throw it maybe under the broiler in the oven if you're cooking in the oven, or me, if I'm cooking on the smoker, I would crank up the heat and sort of do a sear on the outside of this like you would a steak. So we call that a reverse sear, where you smoke it for a while first and then finish it with a sear. As far as seasoning, you can go salt and pepper. I've done herbs and garlic butter on these before. A lot of different options on that, but this is a lot of fun. This will feed, gosh, probably 20 plus people easy. So yeah, one of my favorite things to do that turns out really good. And it looks cool. It's kind of a nice talking point centerpiece for your Christmas dinner. So a good option for pork is the boneless pork loin. This is actually pork chops before they were sliced into pork chops. So again, this cooks really well, slow cooked, so you can do it in the oven, you could do it in the crock pot, you could do it in your smoker. You could even slice this into pork chops and cook them that way. But this, just kind of a long cut of meat like this, again, makes a nice looking centerpiece. You could do some garnishes around it, things like that, and then carve it and serve it at the table. It's a simple thing to cook, and usually turns out pretty well. There's a lot of things you could do with spices, seasonings on this. You could go simple as salt and pepper. You could do a full-on pork rub on it. A lot of different options on how to cook this, and it's really fun to serve this at the table, especially if you've got a nice big cutting board. Like I said, do some garnishes around it and then slice it and serve it on the spot. So that's something that's a lot of times overlooked, I think, is just the boneless pork loin. A lot of times when you think pork, you think pulled pork and ribs, stuff like that, but this is a good, little bit different option that I might recommend for a pork for Christmas dinner. Another great pork option is the classic spiral cut ham. You can cook this in the oven. It's already cooked, so you can't really mess it up. I've cooked these in the smoker a few times, do a honey glaze on them, they turn out really good. Easy to do, like I said, it's already cooked, so not much to do. You're really just reheating it. In the smoker, you're getting a bit of extra flavor onto it. And yeah, just a pretty classic go-to option for a centerpiece for Christmas dinner. For poultry, you really can't go wrong with doing a whole chicken. These ones are pretty small. I'd get a bigger one. You could go with turkey, but just coming off of Thanksgiving, I think most people are done with turkey. I'd just do a whole chicken, do a Johnny's seasoning rub on it, and cook it till it's 165 degrees internal, and you're good to go. So that one's easy, and it always turns out good. So out of all the options today, if I had to pick just one, I would go with the tri-tip, and here's why. It's priced relatively reasonably compared to some of the other more expensive cuts, like the rib roast. It's beef, which is my favorite type of meat to cook, and it doesn't take nearly as much time as a larger cut like the pork loin or the ribeye roast is going to take quite a bit of time to cook. These you can get done in a couple of hours if you're smoking them, or 20 to 30 minutes if you're grilling them. So they've got a couple selections here. There's actually a few pretty decent looking ones, but I'll show you what I look for when I'm picking out a tri-tip. This is really going to be, in my opinion, the best bang for the buck. This has a little bit of a fold here. You want it to be fairly smooth on the surface. You want to see some pretty evenly dispersed marbling throughout. The coloring's a little bit different between these two, so I might not pick this pack. This one particular looks really good. If there were two identical ones of these, it would be a no-brainer. I'd pick this one. This one being a little bit darker, it might just mean that it's aged a little bit more. It might actually be better, but I like them to be the same. That way I know they're going to turn out the same. So I would probably, out of the ones that are here, this one's got a little bit of a fold in it. The only thing I don't like about that is you don't know what it looks like underneath, and if that's a lot thinner than the rest of it, once you fold that out, it's going to cook differently. I might even consider trimming that off and cooking that separately as a steak. But all in all, this is a good package as well. Good marbling. You do have some little bit thicker chunks of fat in there, which if you're doing a slow cook, those are going to render down nicely. Let's see, weight-wise, this is 5 pounds total, so about 2.5 pounds each. That's about a good size. About 2.5 to 3 pounds per tri-tip is a really good size. Any bigger than that, and you kind of just get a beef flavor in the middle. Any smaller than that, you risk overcooking them too quickly. They're more similar to a steak. What I like about tri-tip is it's kind of a balance between a steak and a roast. You get the steak flavor, but a roast quantity of meat. So you can slice it and serve it like you would a roast, but it still tastes like a steak. So out of the packages that they have here, I would probably end up going with this one just because I like the color on these, and I like the marbling, and they both seem to be about the same size, so they're going to cook fairly evenly. So if it was me and I was doing a moderately sized Christmas dinner that I was hosting, I'd go with tri-tip. It's beef. It cooks fairly well. It looks nice when it's done, and it's relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other larger cuts that you'd see. So there you go. That's what I would do. So there's a few different options for you. We talked about poultry, beef, and pork. Narrowed it down to my favorite, which would be, well, my ultimate favorite would be the bone-in ribeye. That is an intense process cooking that. That is an expensive cut to meat to start with. Something a little more reasonable for most people is going to be the tri-tip. It's quick, easy to cook, and usually ends up being a crowd pleaser. So hope you guys got something out of this video. Appreciate you watching. I'm Kyle, and this is The Carnosaur.